Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time it is that you're watching this, thanks again for clicking on the Penboy Roy Fountain Pen Review channel. The subject of today's video is the Edison Nouveau Premeire Fountain Pen. This is the tale of two Brians. I think it's safe to say that we all know the story of these two dudes, both of whom have modest beginnings. I've gone over this before, so I'm going to speed ramp through this. Brian Gray was a former drug dealer for a pharmaceutical company. Then, one day, due to the company's portion of the multi-trillions of dollars in government subsidies for research and development not being enough to pay for Brian Gray's modest salary, he was laid off. Refusing to live off of government assistance, Brian Gray decided to do what any rational person would do. That is, to make pens in his garage and sell them to fountain pen virus infected people on the internet. He did this enough times that it became a viable way to earn money. Brian Goulet, different yet similar story. He was a pen maker as well. At the time, he was somewhat misguided in his path and made rollerball pens. He had never really experienced fountain pens. That is until one fateful day at a pen show, he did in fact cross paths with a fountain pen. It was at this time that he realized the error in his ways and decided to abandon his path of the rollerball and dedicated his efforts in the education and spreading of the fountain pen virus. Having learned of the pen maker known as Brian Gray, he foresaw the future and decided to sell fountain pens instead of make them. This avoided the creation of an arch nemesis, much in the way of Captain America and the Red Skull. It avoided a fountain pen civil war in the way of Captain America and Iron Man. Rather, it created an ally. Together, the two Brians created and designed the Edison Nouveau Premeire fountain pen, as well as the seasonal limited editions. They were not alone, though. They had a secret weapon. Shall I say, an ace up the sleeve, working in secret behind closed doors. That weapon was the chosen one known as Rachel Goulet. She is the one responsible for many of the interesting colors we have come to know and love with the limited edition seasonal releases. She is the co-owner of the Goulet Pen Company. More importantly, she is the wife and mother of Brian Goulet's children. Thus, she is the safeguard against every seasonal release of the pen being blue every single time, over and over again, being that blue is Brian Goulet's favorite color. This is a credit to Brian Goulet and the trust he has in Rachel's taste, as well as the wherewithal to avoid getting in trouble when he gets home from work for not listening. Can you imagine what that looks like? A meeting at work deciding on the seasonal colors? I don't care what anyone says, we're going with blue for the next seasonal release. Again. Honey, when we get home, we need to have a talk. You know what I meant? Purple. We're going with purple. Her choices have injected variety and intrigue into the seasonal releases successfully over the years since 2011. These pens are all made in Milan, Ohio by Brian Gray and his crew. Additionally, all the seasonal editions are kept a tight-lipped secret until the launch of the pens, something that the Apple Corporation seems to drop the ball on every time they try to launch a phone. There are three options available in the regular series. They are the Caribbean Sea, Cappuccino Swirl, and Cherry Blossom. That's all I have for the background information. Moving on to the neutral zone. Those elements about the pen that are neither good or bad, or can be good or bad, depending on you. The nib is an extra fine stainless steel nib branded with the Edison logo, first debuted in 2011 on the first Edison Nouveau. It has the standard scroll work as seen on all Yovo nibs. The feed is your standard plastic Yovo feed that looks like the underbelly of a cockroach. The nib and feed are friction fit and part of a removable and unscrewable nib unit. It screws into the contoured grip section made of the same material as the rest of the pen. The threads on the grip are unified with the grip and are also made of acrylic. These screw into the inner threads of the body, which are also acrylic. On the outside of the body are the threads that screw into the cap. The rest of the body is a tapered body. It tapers to the end, which is similar to the shape of a full metal jacket bullet. At the center of the body is a subtle branding laser engraved that reads Edison Nouveau Premeire. The cap is more of the same acrylic with the same taper in the body. All of the Edison Nouveaus cap and uncap in 1.5 turns consistently. The top of the cap is pointed in the same way the body is. The finial is a separate piece that is assembled into the cap, causing this visible seam where the clip is assembled and held in place by the finial and the cap body. It was packaged in this cardboard sleeve. Inside the sleeve is the usual fake alligator skin clamshell box with the pen inside. It also includes this paper bookmark, as well as this thin metal clip style bookmark. That's all I have for the neutral zone. Moving on to the good. Those elements about the pen that are good. I have owned this pen for about a year and a half. This pen is actually my first Edison pen I ever bought. I've known and heard about them for some time and always wondered what all the hype was about. Then I finally pulled the trigger on it, and when I got it and wrote with it, it all made sense. The way it wrote was a lot like what I can only imagine the first sip of beer was like to a destined alcoholic. It was genuine bliss in the best way. All this talk of smooth with a touch of feedback was not mumbo jumbo. For me, it was a totally unique experience and provided a sophisticated, enjoyable writing experience. The line width is more on par with a Japanese fine medium, even though it is an extra fine. The ink flow is never an issue, and it is moderate in terms of wetness. There was never any ink flow issues, hard starts, skipping, baby's bottom, or drying out. I've let these pens sit for weeks at a time, and they wrote every time with no issue. Every Edison pen I ever owned with steel nibs are very consistent in the way of performance, with the exception of line width. I'm noticing that as of more recent, the extra fine nibs are finer and truer to an extra fine line width. Let's see how the 18 karat gold version of the Edison nibs compare. They certainly share the same touch of feedback, but have a moderately wetter line. It is also a bit bouncier and springier, no doubt due to the softer quality of gold. I personally find that I enjoy the steel nibs far more as a practical and daily use writer. The gold, as I said, is softer, but not enough to offer significant enough line variation in the line to make it worth the extra $100+. I do, however, like the clean look of the nib, as the gold version doesn't have the scroll work on the shoulders as the steel versions do. Let's compare it to another brand that also uses a JoWo nib, the Diplomat Aero. You may ask, if they all use the JoWo nib, wouldn't they write the same? This is a good question, however, the answer is no. The nibs, although the same, are not tuned and adjusted the same. Edison and Diplomat both have their own flavors in regard to tuning and adjusting of their nibs, resulting in very different writing experiences. The tuning and adjusting of the nib is just as important and make as much a difference as a guitar that is poorly tuned versus a guitar that is properly tuned. In the case of these pens, both are well tuned, just playing different songs. Being that I have a current love affair with this brand, let me compare it with a similar pen with regard to design and shape. The Pen BBS is a fountain pen with a price point of $20 to $30. It shares the same pointed ends, however has a center band and is not eyedroppable due to the metal grip section threads. If the price of an Edison Nouveau is not feasible for you, I would say for sure, this is a fantastic option. This pen is in a price point nowhere near the Edison Nouveau, other than the 18 karat gold nib being 18 karat gold. And the meticulous quality packed into the pen, this pen is nothing like the Edison pens. I'm simply showing it because I like it. It has an in-house made nib and is a total savage when it writes. I love the Aurora 88 Minerale. It's also important to give credit to the craftsmanship of the Edison Nouveau lines and all Edison pens. The meticulous attention given to the polish of these pens are certainly on par with pens that pull a price point of 4 times more than what the Edison pens cost, if not more. Customer service is also a noteworthy point of mention. If ever there is an issue with regard to warranty, the business model of both the Goulet Pen Company and Edison Pen Company are that which absolve you of any cost. Whether you go through Goulet pens or Edison pens, a shipping label is provided to you to avoid having to pay for shipping fees. Additionally, with Edison pens, if for some reason you're cut off from society and don't have a box, one will be mailed to you. This is unique from many larger companies that lay the cost of shipping on you, resulting in a warranty issue that is no fault of yours, costing you more money for the pen in the end. That's all I have for the good. Moving on to the bad. Let's talk coin. As of January 2018, the price of these pens went from $149 to $169 for a steel nib and $279 to $299 for a gold nib. This price increase is due to the expansion of newer, bigger, badder, and stronger machines to make pens at Edison, as well as the increase to the crew that works behind the scenes at Edison Pens. Is this cost a lot to ask? That depends largely on your stage of infection of the fountain pen virus. If your infection is in the earlier stages, and your pens are largely those obtained from stores like Staples, made of metals and heavier materials, it is perceivable for you to hold an Edison Nouveau Premeire in your hand, or any Edison pen, and wonder why such a light pen costs so much. It's also perceivable that this type of infected is not infected enough to fully appreciate the nuances and beauty of the acrylic. So for those users, the cost can be viewed as exorbitant. That's all I have for the bad. Moving on to the ugly. Those elements about the pen that should not be, but are. There's not much to talk about in the ugly. The only ugly I can mention are in the more recent releases, most likely due to calibration issues experienced with the newer machines that Edison pens recently acquired. I have noticed around the time that the 2017 winter editions came out, the cutout for where the clip enters the cap was larger than the actual clip. This creates a situation where the clip was able to rotate with normal usage, such as capping and uncapping the pen. I fear, in the future, that the back and forth rotation may chip away at the acrylic cutout, thereby increasing the size of the cutout as time passes. Lastly, with my 2017 fall edition, I did notice that the nib would scrape up against the underside of the cap during the last rotation of capping. Although this was corrected by Brian Gray at no cost to me, it took about a week for me to get my pen back. That is minor. However, it was a week without my pen that I didn't want to include in my pen buying experience. It's high noon. Decision-making time. Should you or should you not pull the trigger on the Edison Nouveau Premeire fountain pen? I would have to say, if you're a newer user, or otherwise, pull the trigger on this pen. Is it a good chunk of change? Sure, but it's totally worth it. If the cost is something that you can't swing, it's definitely worth saving for. In the meantime, there are other options available that do cost less, such as the Pen BBS 349, the Monteverde Prima, Conklin Durograph, or the Laban Celebration. However, with regard to quality and after service, I don't believe that there is a superior option to the Edison brand pens. That was my review on the Edison Nouveau Premeire fountain pen. I hope it helped. Check out the script below on how to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram. Love you guys. Be well. Be safe.